original sin. Original sin is distinguished from actual or personal sin, because actual or personal sin is the sin which we personally with our own will commit, whilst original sin is that sin which our human nature has committed with the will of Adam, with whom our human nature is united as a branch to a root, as a child to a parent. As men who partake with Adam the same nature which we have derived from him, and as members of the same human family of which Adam was the head, if our hand strike a fellow man unjustly, though the hand has itself no will, yet it is considered guilty, not indeed as viewed separately by itself, but inasmuch as it is united to the rest of the body and to the soul, forming one human being therewith, and thus, not as having a will of its own, but as sharing in the will of the soul with which it is connected. Again, the sin committed inwardly by the human will, by a bad desire, that sin belongs to the whole human being. Of the original sin in which we are born, we are not personally guilty with our own personal will, but our nature is guilty of it by the will of Adam our head, with whom we form one body through the human nature which we derive from him. It is a point of Catholic faith that original sin does not consist in concupiscence, which is a propensity to evil of the inferior part of the human soul. Sin of any kind, in order to be a sin, in the strict sense of the word, must be within the sphere of morality, that is, it must depend upon free will, and hence the noted principle in moral philosophy and in moral theology that there is no sin where there is no will. Concupiscence, therefore, which is not will, but a blind, involuntary inclination of our lower nature, and therefore an irresponsible tendency to evil, is not of itself sinful unless it be consented to by the human will. Concupiscence is indeed sometimes called sin in Holy Scripture, but it is called so, as the Holy Council of Trent explains, not in a strict but in a wide sense, that is, inasmuch as it is a consequence of sin, and an incentive to sin. This concupiscence, in fact, still remains in those in whom original sin has been entirely washed away by the sacrament of holy baptism. Moreover, no one is regarded, strictly speaking, as a sinner merely because he feels tempted to sin. This miserable propensity to evil excites the compassion of God rather than his anger. God said to Noah, "I will no more curse the earth for the sake of man, for the imagination and thought of man's heart are prone to evil from his youth." Genesis 8:21. Catholic faith teaches that Adam by his sin has not only caused harm to himself, but to the whole human race, that by it he lost the supernatural justice and sanctity which he received gratuitously from God, and lost not only for himself, but also for all of us, and that he, having stained himself with the sin of disobedience, has transmitted not only death and other bodily pains to the whole human race, but also sin, which is the death of the soul. This teaching of the Council of Trent is confirmed by those words of St. Paul, "Wherefore, as by one man sin entered into this world, and by sin death, and so death passed upon all men in whom all have sinned." Romans 5:12. Besides the guilt of original sin, which is that habitual state of sinfulness in which we have been born, because our human nature is justly considered to have consented in Adam to the rejection of original justice. There is also in man the stain of original sin, which is the privation in the human soul of that supernatural luster, which, had we been born in the state of original justice, we all should have had. As neither Adam nor any of his offspring could repair the evil done by his sin, we should ever have remained in the state of original sin and degradation in which we were born, and we should have been forever shut out from the beatific vision of God, had not God in his infinite mercy provided for us a Redeemer.